Good morning and welcome to Talking Baseball Australia. Dan Vaughan, Paul Morgan's on the corner, right, ready to go. In 3, 2, 1, let's cue that open. Let's roll this thing. Baseball's best mate is on the air. Here we go.
It's Talking Baseball Australia. It's baseball updates you'll really love. The MLB and ABL news you want. With Paul Morgan and Dan Vaughan. It's baseball's best mate all year round. From the batter's box to the mound.
And welcome to this week's show. Paul Morgan's going to be joining me in a couple of seconds. I'm going to bring him up and bring him live. Actually, I hate it when my volume on my phone actually is so loud that I actually drown myself out of my own office. But I'm going to bring him up, bring him on. There he is, folks, in the beautiful west of Australia. Good morning to you, sir. How is the coffee this morning?
I actually haven't had my coffee yet, DV. It's very I was a bit rushed this morning. I haven't had the coffee, so but I'm in the office here in Subiaco, so I'll be heading down the road to grab a coffee right after this for sure. But,
there you go, boy. The world we live in, this whole COVID thing, it changes by the hour. And this show, and I'm just going to pull the curtain back. We've gone through like 4 different rundowns of this show this week.
Yes.
That's how much has been going on. So I want to preview quickly what's going on this week. Of course, I'm in North America. He's in Australia. It's really a morning edition out west for you guys, a little breaking baseball. But I want to ask the question first. And really, I'm going to change the question. Originally, I had a question answered or question posed. I'm going to pose this question to you folks out there, and I want you guys to chime in. The chat's open. The questions, comments are right there for you. We'd love to hear from you. But what I'd like to find out from you guys is to bubble or not to bubble. That is the question. I believe Shakespeare at one time wrote this.
It's exactly what he said.
To bubble or not to bubble. That's on the show. That's really what we're jumping into. We've also got some other odds and ends of MLB and some other little odds and ends around the show. But I'm going to jump into right off the top and the news that you've seen the last, well, some of you may have been sleeping. Some of you folks in the East saw this. If you're in North America, you probably saw it. It is the possibility of having a bubble of some sort in New Zealand. You saw it. What was your knee jerk when you saw that first?
Well, interesting. For those who haven't seen it, summarising it, I suppose, is the Auckland Tuatara have said that they want a bubble. And look, to be fair, in New Zealand, the National Rugby League team, the New Zealand Warriors, they've had to come to Australia. Also, the Wellington Phoenix in soccer, they've had to come over to Australia as well. So they've had no real sport outside of their Super Rugby competition over there in New Zealand. Of course, they're back in a little bit of a lockdown in Auckland, but not. I'm sure they'll get over that pretty quickly. But what probably strikes me off the bat, DV, is the article posted on the New Zealand Media Hub was sort of in relation to New Zealand having Auckland having them and 3 other teams. We know Geelong Korea are one of the other teams. Based off what we see on Facebook last night with the Sydney Blue Sox, with the eye emoji saying, our division rivals might look different, you would assume that then you're out there as well with the Sydney Blue Sox. And look, I would think Melbourne or Brisbane make up the numbers there. What it does do, DV, is it puts a big question mark in my mind on all the other teams. Are the other teams going to get together and do a bubble as well? We're talking Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, or is it, or maybe are those teams not playing? And that's the speculation, and that's sort of the unanswered questions that sort of sit there right now, DV.
Yeah, and right there's the piece. I'm going to go and put the screen for you guys there. Here's the piece that Paul's talking about that was on the screen in Sydney's Facebook page. In case you missed it, there's the piece right there, and that is our division and our rivals are going to look very different this season, and that's what they had on their Facebook page just a couple of days ago, and that's what he's referring to right there. But seeing that, I want to give you guys a couple of quotes, because I've got some breaking news quote from Cam Vale CEO of Baseball Australia and heads the ABL. But I went back through last week's show, and we had that long interview with Cam. It was really good stuff. He's going to come on again down the road, perhaps as early as next week. I cut out 2 cuts. One's a 30-second cut, one's a minute cut. But I think if you go back and listen to these 2 cuts, a lot of what's been reported in New Zealand, because there's been some folks have said, partner, that this is just New Zealand kind of like the Manny thing and the whole, Manny Ramirez, that kind of New Zealanders are a little new at this baseball thing and they just kind of throw things against the wall. I think this thing's got major legs, and I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. Here's reason number 1. This is Cam Vail. I'm going to go and just put the screen for us all to hear here. This is Cam Vail last week on the show. I want you guys to hear what he had to say.
Certainly got different options, and in particular when it comes to having, teams like Geelong, Korea, and Auckland, that definitely has a significant complexity that just has to be managed. And all the teams are good, whether it's those 2 teams or the 6 domestic Australian teams to try to work through. It's funny, I'm getting a lot of sympathy because we are literally, I reckon, onto the 100th different version of what we could do. But I have far greater sympathy for the teams because they are the ones that have to manage, largely through this period. Certainly.
Did you hear that, partner?
I did not.
Okay. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm sorry. I will make sure you hear the next one. I'm going to go ahead and put you down so you can hear this. But basically, what he said was he mentions both Auckland and Geelong, Korea in the same sentence, which I think is where this thing is heading. This second quote is going to talk more about that in the bubble in general, and also talk a little bit about the reasons behind the bubble. And I think we're going to be able to put 2 and 2 together easily with this quote, and then I'll give you what he told me earlier. Maybe I'll pull this back for you guys. Give me just a second here. I'm producing the fly here. This is also from last week's show, and I'm going to pull Paul down so he can hear this, but let's pull him down just for a moment here and pull you down there, buddy, and so you can hear this. Here is Cam Vail from last week. Here it is.
It'd be fair to say hubs are still an option, but not as an 8-team hub. At that stage, that would be getting towards, we're so deep in, we have to play now. And it would also be, as we're seeing with, I think, literally every hub in sport, if it's backed on broadcast, then you're playing in a hub. Well, 2 teams might go to one location for a period. Maybe 4 teams might go for a period to help reduce the risk. So it's almost like a tournament-style baseball model in season could be part of the mix, absolutely. But Geelong Korea is another great example where, a lot of they are a broadcast-focused model, right? So they are, if there's no broadcast, they're not playing back in a career. So as much as we'd love to be able to keep them in Geelong, and that's obviously on the cards, if that meant they had to hub for a season somewhere else, well, that would be an example where, a hub or a mini bubble would be in the schedule.
That's Cam Vail from last week there, and partner, I don't know how much of that you caught there, but you get the gist of what he was saying. I don't think you start adding this up, it makes sense, right? I mean, does it make sense?
Well,
you got the 2 teams, the 2 largest television markets, ratings drivers. Auckland had much success over there on the island last year. And then Geelong, Korea, huge success with the game broadcast. It makes some sense. So those 2 got to be in the same place where, A, they can't afford the game being derailed by COVID. They've got to be in a place where they can get all their games in.
It makes sense. I think, as I say, we've narrowed probably Sydney, Auckland, Geelong, Korea, and who's the other one? Is it Brisbane? Is it Canberra? Is it Melbourne? That's it. That's kind of the question. And the other 4 teams, Adelaide, Melbourne, Canberra, Perth, I guess we don't know what's happening there, whether there's a secondary hub in place. I don't think, I'm with you. I think the hub can work in Auckland just purely based, they have a deal with Sky Sports, they have a broadcast deal. They'll get some ad revenue. Geelong, Korea, it doesn't really matter. We know that doesn't really matter where they play because their TV deal obviously is so strong in Korea. So it doesn't really matter for them where they play. So those 2 teams make a lot of sense. Sydney, we know Sydney sort of where that franchise is at the moment, and that's probably not, they're probably not going to be hugely affected playing in Auckland either. And then, whoever it may well be. But, as indeed, is what Matt says right there. The league needs a broadcast deal, or it's not going to be viable. And that's 100% correct. So the other four teams are left in the cold at the moment. Seemingly, I'm sure there's something being done in the background, but these guys work part. Baseball doesn't pay the bills. DV, we know that, and you need something major. Like, it's a very different story in Geelong Korea. They're already affiliated players. And look, all the Major League Baseball affiliated players are all paid as well, so that makes no difference. But when you're talking your run-of-the-mill West Australian, South Australian, Victorian, like, I don't know. I'm not going to assume what they get paid, but it's not enough to sustain your life. So you have to argue that there's something either major has to be in the works, or maybe it's a less than 8-team competition this year.
Let me give you guys what Cam told me via email in the last hour. I reached out to Cam Vale after all these reports came out, and he's been real good to stay in touch. Let me go pull this off the screen so you guys can see this. I'm going to give it a full screenshot for you there. I'm going to read it to you guys. And this was Cam's quote to me earlier. Said, we're still finalizing options. The Auckland hub or a partial hub like that is a genuine option for the part of the season. We're aiming at announcing our schedule next week. And if you read, I'll put it back up there, you guys, again, give you guys a chance to kind of read it there. Seeing that right there on the screen tells me that it's pretty much a done deal. Now, I think what you're saying, and this is where I think the $1 million question, or maybe in this case, is what did Matt say? The $3,000 question, maybe. What happens to the run-of-the-mill Australian baseball player who lives in Perth or lives in Adelaide and who can't get away from his regular 9-to-5 gig like he can on the weekends, and his holiday pay, he can't escape he can't leave. You have guys that could go to Melbourne for a series, they have to take a vacation there, whatever, holiday day, but they can't spend 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever it is, in Auckland. I guess that's the real question mark. So what kind of creative thing can the league do to make it work? And I think that's the question that I don't think anybody has any clue on. There's got to be something out there that they've got in their 100. Can't even told us. There was 100 different schedule ideas they came up with. There has to be one of these 100 ideas that's got some kind of way to get the young Western Australian players or South Australian or wherever an opportunity to play where they're not being canceled out this year.
Yeah, 100%, and that's, I guess, the $1 million question. You could make an argument if Sydney are one of the teams in Auckland, maybe the Blue Sox are going with all affiliated players. Like, we don't know that, and that possibly is, maybe that's the league model this year, is that most of the teams are completely affiliated teams. We know that there is, in the US, we know DV, the minor league baseball season hasn't gone ahead. There's a lot of players needing reps, and maybe this year the Sydney Blue Sox are the Sydney Blue Jays or the Melbourne Rangers, or who knows. So.
And that is a report that I saw on the fringes, and that has circulated around a little bit in North America. It's circulated around a little bit, and one of them is not all of the reports I saw in New Zealand were the same. They all have the gist of the same bubble, but one of the things that was mentioned was, and the Texas Rangers came up. Of course, they've sent players to Auckland anyway, but there has been some talk that perhaps and I don't know how this would work. I don't know how financially it would work. Obviously, Major League Baseball, the organizations, the Rangers or White Sox, whoever, would have to foot the bill. But I've seen reports and some kind of rumor mill that there might be full MILB teams going over, but I don't know how that would work. How would you decide who you send, who you don't send? Are you going to send a pool of players? Now, this has happened before in North America. In the American Association up until this year, and it's supposed to happen again next year, the team in Texas, the Air Hogs, have a 40-player pool of Chinese national players who come over, stay in North America, stay in the States, and they have basically training the Chinese national team, and they play as a team, as the Texas Air Hogs in the American Association. So it's not a totally foreign concept. This has been done before. There's been teams from Japan playing in independent leagues in the States as well. There was a team from Cuba played in the States as well a few years ago. So it's not a total foreign concept, but I've never seen and never heard of a North American team picking up and going and playing winter ball. That's the question. But in this day and age, partner, with the way COVID is, everything's on the table. I can see it happening.
Well, and there could very well be a model. I mean, there's 30 MIL or MLB teams. You could have potentially Perth plus, let's say, Pittsburgh, Arizona, LA, and San Diego in Perth, and you could have your ABL teams potentially only playing in their home cities with four affiliated teams. Like you don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows. The schedule's supposed to be coming out next week, so I guess we'll know a little bit better.
We'll know more, won't we? Of course, you and I were talking before they go on the air, but we're not sure where we can go, who we can go with, and how to get there.
I mean, the rumor mill's also sort of ramping up around Adelaide being a bubble from what I see, but again, that doesn't solve your problem, DV, of how you get local players to play, and also secondly, how you get owners on board who are not going to lose their shorts.
Yes.
By fielding a team and paying a team and assumingly making very little commercial revenue. So
the show's Talking Baseball Australia live. We're live on two sides of this planet. I mean, this whole circle of thing we spin around on, we're on different sides. We're talking baseball at different days even, but talking baseball from an Australian point of view. And this was this kind of came out of the woodwork the last couple of days. Glad you're long. Questions, comments, planes by planes, trained, and automobiles. Yes, right on, Wendy. But glad you guys are along. Comments are welcome. We'll love to get those. I actually got some questions to ask you from the email. We actually had some email last week. And we think the schedule will come out next week. Cam Vale he's going to come back on again when we get this, but I still think there's a lot of moving parts between now and then. I'll ask the $1,000 question. Well, heck, maybe it's $1 million.
Oh, wow.
How confident are you? You're on the ground there, and you have a pulse of what's going on. How confident that all 8 teams currently, as they sit, are you that all 8 teams play? And we already know Cam's told us they're going to be baseball games played in the ABL, but do you think all 8 teams, as we sit right here, all 8 teams will be playing this 2021 season?
No, I don't think all 8 teams will be playing. I think there will be teams playing. I don't think all 8 teams will be playing. I think that there's way too many. And look, and I actually have no idea about this outside the fact that I live in Perth. Our state border is still closed. I just can't see how Perth gets out of Western Australia, teams get into Western Australia. And look, Auckland also, I mean, New Zealand are going to be pretty strict on their border control as well. So, I mean, once you're in that hub, you ain't getting out of that hub. So, and all teams aren't going in that hub. So it's, do I think all 8 teams will play? No, I think 4 definitely will play. I think maybe you stretch it to 7 max. I'm just not sure that I'm not sure that it logistically makes sense for all teams to play, and that's going to be the tough. That's going to be the tough part. What about you, DV? What's your?
I know there's going to be baseball played there, but again, I think there's so many questions, and I'm with you. I mean, who gets in the country? I mean, I just tell you right now, I follow every airline blog possible for travel because I want to come to Australia. So I'm trying to plan my possible routes, but as it changes on a daily. Now, granted, I'm not coming for a while, but I mean, right now you're looking at the only way to get in as a North American is to fly. Probably have to reserve business seat. They're not even flying, but at maybe a dozen economy seats. So if you got to fly 40 players over just from one organization, that's expensive. And you're playing business, and those fares are $7,000 right now. So I mean, those are all. And John even says here, he says to bring an MILB team that would cost organization $200,000 US or more. A month. No chance to fork that out. I will tell you this, John. The Chinese Baseball Federation, or it's the Beijing club that actually foots the bill, but it's the Chinese national team. They pay the Grand Prairie Club or the Texas Club $1 million every 2 years. It's $1 million deal. So that's the house them, feed them. I'm sorry, it's a 3-year deal. House them, feed them. Bring their own chef, everything. They and gym membership, everything, and that's for just a team of 40 minor leaguers playing in the States. So let's see here. I think Scott's onto something here, and I think this is maybe where before we get to our judge and jury in a moment, this is where we're talking about. I think, and this is my prediction. You're asking me what I thought. I think we do play 6 teams, 7 teams, whatever it may be, but a shortened season. I'm thinking a sprint, a 25-game sprint. And now one of their stories had that in there, but I think a sprint, maybe it's January, maybe it's from January 10th onward, something like that. But I think pushing the start there. Daniel says pushing league start back, make it more carnival feel, play the season over a month early next year. More chance of getting bigger names. Yes, I think that's kind of the way. I don't think we play during Santa's visit. I don't think this is going to be one year we won't do that.
And don't be surprised if people hear about the NBL basketball. Pretty confident that you're going to hear very shortly that season's going to start in January. So that probably lines up. But then, look, I think at the same time, DV, and I saw you on your blog talk about this yesterday. Australia have obviously signed the deal in Oxford to get the vaccines. And if that proves to be all good and everyone's vaccinated by January, I don't know if that timeline's possible or not, then obviously the whole thing changes and it becomes a lot simpler from a border opening point of view and whatnot. But until then, I think we're just watch this space.
Yep. I want to give you guys this little tidbit too that echoes a little bit. We talked about Team Australia in the top 8 team in the world. We were going to break down the rankings. We'll do that another time, but the rankings are out there, and we'll explain those on a future show. But it's great for Team Australia. But the rumor is, and this is coming from the stateside, that Major League Baseball, once the playoffs are announced, they will probably, along with the bubble, they'll probably do the bubble. They're going to announce that the World Baseball Classic will be moved to 2023. The 21 Classic, of course, the qualifiers weren't even played. They didn't even get those in last year. They're going to move the whole thing to 21. And the good news is they're going to expand the thing to 20 teams. Australia obviously will be one of the 20. A good chance New Zealand is one of the 20 as well. The one thing that I will say why it's important to get these games in, because still – we do know while the World Baseball Classic takes some of the pressure off Team Australia having to get that work in lieu of the 21 World Baseball Classic, being moved to 23, that takes some pressure off. But they're still much alive for the qualifier to go to Tokyo next summer because that's still in the mix. That's why you want to have some kind of at-bats, some kind of opportunity for your Team Australia players to get some reps, to get themselves ready for that's why it's imperative that a season of some sort gets played in Australia.
And you bring up a great point, Dan, as well. Like, is potentially one of the teams that, is it potentially, I don't know, at worst case scenario, is it Auckland, Geelong, Korea, Team Australia? I mean, is it or Team Australia A, Team Australia B? I don't know. Like, even is that because your point is so valid that these guys need to get reps under their belt because they still have a shot at the Olympics, as you say, and they've 2023 is not that far away. The Team Australia brand needs to get out there a bit more. So, I mean, like if you wanted to speculate, maybe there's that as well. Maybe there's something around that they're getting. I don't know what's in the works. Maybe perhaps there's some government funding through the Institute of Sport or something along those lines that sort of helps foot the bill for the next little while. And maybe it's that. Maybe it is just Team Australia's playing as well.
Welcome to Baseball's Best Mate. If you're just joining us here on Facebook Live, and glad you're along. My name's Dan Vaughan, and my broadcast partner, Paul Morgan. We hope to call games somewhere, someplace in the ABL this year. We're not sure where we may be. Who knows what we're going to be doing? We're on the edge of our seats too. We're not even playing. We're on the edge of our seats. But just got to bump through a couple of things to the MLB quickly here, and I'm going to give you two little things that were big news in the States this week. The Grand Slam for Fernando Tatis Jr. That's the first one, and then the Trevor Bauer cleats incident. And I'm just going to say first off, the whole Tatis thing's ridiculous. I mean, if you can't throw strikes, your job's hit the ball the ballpark, regardless if you missed the take sign. That's ridiculous. Be better. Throw strikes. Be better. The idea is to score runs. I mean, I don't. He's an exciting player, and baseball itself cannot get out of their own way. They've the COVID thing I just saw tonight about an hour ago, where there's issues with the Mets down in their series has been banged and all this kind of stuff. You get all these issues with these COVID things. Baseball's kind of limping along, dragging their leg behind them, just trying to get through it, and they're going to get through it regardless. They shut things down, but when this game in the States, North America, needs good things. They need Tatis. They need to kind of tongue in cheek it with Trevor Bauer with his cleats. So if you guys, your thoughts on why does baseball make it so stoogey? Why are they so just? It's no fun, man. That's not fun. That's the news is not fun with them.
It was funny because I was watching, and it was only this morning, and I was watching as I was sort of just catching up on the morning sport. I had the Milwaukee Bucks were playing the Orlando Magic. I had Blue Jays baseball game on. There's some NHL on as well, and I sat there and thought, NHL have really come to the party with their bubble scenario. NBA, I think, have done an exceptional job, with the screens and the fans there. And then baseball, outside of cardboard cutouts, I was looking at going, they're just trying to drag out the same old product. They've really just seemingly done, like they've taken minimal effort to really, and I must admit, I found myself going, this, and I get it, it's playoffs, but this Bucks Orlando Magic game has really got my attention far more than the baseball does. But, you go and, I agree with Jeff Passan said back on the Grand Slam. If you throw a bad 3-0 pitch, you deserve to get deposited into the seats.
And in reality, it wasn't really a bad pitch, but still, if you again, the job's to score runs. I mean, I and we're going to get to that in a moment. We're going to get to our little tongue in cheek in a moment. I was going to say, you bring up the NHL, very good point. Postseason bubble for Major League Baseball. There's a couple articles. I think ESPN had one today. But it's they're pushing toward a bubble of some sort for the postseason, including the World Series. It's been a smashing success of the NHL. They've had no issues at all. Of course, I'm a Dallas Stars fan. They're going to be on here in about an hour, or in less than an hour. I'll be watching them against Calgary, and they're playing there in Edmonton. It's still hockey. It's weird to watch because there's no fans. But it's weird to watch. But how they've managed the game, I think what the NFL and every other league in the world is watching what baseball's done wrong and what NBA and NHL have done right. Yeah. And I think the ABL's watching that. They have to be.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I think the NBA has done the best of the lot in terms of their fan experience. But boy, I mean, and then Trevor Bauer, just the fun cleats, free Joe Kelly. I mean, it's fun. It's like there's nothing offensive about it.
And what Bauer said, and I believe it was, and he had a long laundry of tweets on his own Twitter. He went on. He said, I mean, you're not going to punish the Astros, and but you're going to punish me, and I think that's where baseball misses it, and I there's been some that have said that maybe Manfred's the worst. Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, may be the worst. I mean, that may be, and don't want to bog down the MLB. Yeah. Those are kind of some of the headlines this week, and baseball can't get out of their own way.
Last question for you on MLB. Do you think this season has damaged that product greatly?
I think they've damaged their product greatly over the last 20 years. Every time there's been a great feel-good story, they find a way to sabotage it. I think what really upset the fans in general was it took them months to figure out what the heck they were going to do because they couldn't agree on what they wanted to do because they couldn't agree on money. And yes, we all got to get paid our money. I understand that. That's I have no problem with a person trying to do that. But the image of the average sport fan in North America, they believe that baseball players are overpaid, the owners are overpaid, and that either they all need to go away. I mean, it's a game that one time had a passion to it, but and baseball needs to be tricked up. They need the Fernando Tatis Juniors, and they need those. They need the guy. They need more characters. And I'm not saying be like World Wrestling Federation or something like that off the turnbuckle, But they need more
Yeah.
characters. They need more people that you can,
Yeah.
it's like look at the NFL in the States. I mean,
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes is as big of a thing as there is. I mean, NFL stars, NBA stars. I mean, the
Yeah.
long list
The
of
biggest
NBA
thing they've got
stars,
there.
it's huge. They're
Yeah.
huge. So, they have not gotten their own way. And this goes back 20 years, but yes, they continue to damage themselves, and they need a real reset. And how they do it,
Yeah.
I got no idea, but very good stuff. Quickly on the ABL side of things this week, Lewis Thorpe did work last night. 4 innings of relief, long relief last night, which is kind of looks to be his role. He did give up 4 earned though, 3 strikeouts. He didn't work for a week, but then worked in long relief. I think we're seeing his transition to the bullpen. Any thoughts on that?
No, it takes a clear sort of transition to the bullpen, and I wonder if he's sort of, like Liam Hendricks obviously started as a starter in Minnesota as well. Like, is he going to go down that line? I wonder, does he reach out to Liam and go, hey, this is the career that I'm seemingly headed for? Like, can you be my mentor? I don't know. I mean, but that seems to be the way. And look, that team, the Twins are really good. They're a contending team as well. I think the longer he can hang in there and spend time in the bullpen, the better he'll be long term as well. But they're a good team. They've got a good rotation as well. So probably the bullpen is the option for him right now.
No doubt about it. Paul says you learn the juniors to take a 3-0 pitch because you'll get another fastball after. But this is in the 1% in the world. This should happen. You shouldn't pitch that bad. You have to have an yes. Yeah. Here's the deal. I've broadcast enough over the years that I've seen. Yes, if you're up 10-0, you should win the ball game, even if you're in the 5th, 3rd, 2nd inning.
Yeah.
But you and I called a game where what was it, 23-17 or something nonsense like that?
32-10.
Yeah, but I mean, the losing team scored 10. I've seen enough times where even in a tense ball game, you're up 7-0, you're cruising along in the 6th, all of a sudden a walk, hit a batter, here comes a base hit, bases loaded, boom, here comes a home run. Suddenly it's 7-4, and then game on, and you wind up losing that game. And I've seen it happen time and time again. So you don't take the foot off the gas pedal. Yeah, don't take the foot. Liam Hendricks. Go ahead.
I'm terribly sorry, but someone has to use this room, DV.
You got to go.
So I've got to go, but I'll let you wrap up with the crowd on the final bits. Which are
awesome. And I'll save the yay and nay for next week because we got to get those unwritten rules. I'll let you go, partner. All right, there we go. We're a little late start today, but I will wrap this thing up with the, of course, baseball's mess mate. Of course, talk about Liam Hendricks. This guy is rounding into one of the premier closers in baseball. Of course, tied for saves in Major League Baseball. Hendricks for the week pitched in 3 games, got back-to-back saves, 14th and 15th against the Giants. They're the Cross Bay rivals. His back-to-backers there. That was over the last weekend. Then last night he got a save as well against Arizona. For the week, 3 innings, walk, 4 strikeouts, no hits allowed. For the season, he's 1-0 in 12 1/3, 8 saves, 7 hits for Liam Hendricks, the Aussie legend. He's taken the MLB by storm. 3 walks, 18 strikeouts. And Paul mentioned how again, you're seeing a guy transition from being a starter. And sometimes in baseball, it's that either the change of scenery or the change of your role can change a whole guy's fortune. In this case, his role from being kind of pigeonholed as a starter the first part of his career, now as a lethal closer, I think you're seeing a guy flourish in a role. He finds a place he feels comfortable in, and he is definitely in this 2020 season a top. If you're a fantasy ball player, you're picking Liam. You want Liam Hendricks on your club. Let's see what else we got here. Questions, comments too, as we roll this thing along. What I was going to do for you, we're going to do this. I'm going to show this to you so Paul can see it, but this is what you're going to get next week. We were actually going to do this today, but we were going to hold court today because it got me thinking initially, this whole hit, do you take on 3-0? Do you hit a grand slam? What do you do? This whole nonsense, which still, what do you put in your cleats? There's the unwritten rule book, right? There's the unwritten rules of baseball. It's not really been published necessarily, although my friends in St. Paul a couple of years ago, 2016, the St. Paul Saints did publish the official baseball unwritten rule book there, that was they had a couple years ago. They did put that out and they gave that away. I don't think there was anything actually in it. I think actually they gave you an empty book, and I think the fans wrote what they want to write in there. But there's your official baseball unwritten rule book right there. But Paul and I will do this for you guys coming up down the road. We were going to do it today, but we're not ran a little behind here. But we're going to do this for you guys, and this is it, judge and jury for you. We're going to be court is in session. We're going to be doing this for you guys. There we are in our robes and our wigs. There, doing our court and with the gavel and the baseball. That'll be coming to you guys. We're going to go through the entire list of unwritten rules and go to yay or nay them. Not an entire list, but about 10 or so that we've got. Things like, do you steal bases or strut home after home runs by a large margin? Do you show up your opponents? Do you show up your fielders? Throwing at hitters, things like that. I mean, we're going to go through some of those unwritten rules. We'll do that for you guys on Baseball's Best Mate coming up in future shows. We got a lot coming up for you. Coming up on our, and this is all kind of subject to what happens with the Australian Baseball League schedule coming up over the weekend and what goes forward next week. Cam Vaughan, as I mentioned earlier, in case you missed the headline off the top, got this from Cam. This was the quote concerning the schedule and concerning the situation that's going around the New Zealand papers and some of the media there in Australia as well, that the options for the Auckland hub in that situation, but they're aiming at announcing the schedule next week. Cam has agreed to come back on the show with us when they do announce the schedule, so the fixture should be out, we believe, in the next week. I have a lot to digest there. Also coming up, Tyler Alexander is going to be joining us as well. I'm sorry, did I say Tyler Alexander? That's former Fargo Moorhead Redhawk. I don't know why I'm talking about Tyler Alexander. Tyler Alexander I had the Fargos on my mind earlier. But coming up as well, we will be joining Tyler Anderson. I don't know why I said Alexander. Pardon me, Tyler, if you're watching us. Tyler Anderson, who was the last couple of seasons was in the dugout with the Perth Heat. And I think it's important. The reason I want to get him on the show, I want his experience as a pitching coach coming from North America, what he saw arm-wise from the young Australian pitchers. I believe the young Australian pitchers have a leg up. I think because of the cricket background, and I also believe because of the AFL footy background a lot of these guys played, that's a real huge advantage for them athletically. I think it helps their mechanics. I want to get his thoughts on that, on some of the guys he saw, and just his thoughts as a guy coming over to working in Australia. And I think he'll echo the same sentiments I echo as a person living in North America part-time and who works in baseball in North America, coming to Australia, being a part of the ABL. I think you'll get the same feeling you get from me. There's some things I keep saying that people ask me all the time about baseball in Australia and want to come play. And these players want to come be a part of what's going on in the ABL. And I think he'll get the same insight from Tyler. He'll be joining us. He's scheduled to join us next week, but all depends on what happens with Cam Vaughan and the announcement of the schedule, if that comes out. So we've got that. Also, Alan D. San Miguel and I have spoken as well. Alan's going to be on one of our future shows. We're reaching out to others as well. We've got a lot to get to when this show is just kind of taking off. So you're going to have guests and going to have all kinds of baseball really nuggets right here. We're going to get things like today where we got kind of blindsided earlier overnight with the whole possible bubble in New Zealand. And in case you missed into the Open, Paul and I were talking about this here on Baseball's Best Mate, that it looks like there's going to be some kind of quasi bubble coming to New Zealand. And it may obviously going to involve Geelong Korea, one of the teams, and obviously the Auckland team, and whoever else that may be. Will it be an all-star team? Would it be a Team Australia? Would it be whoever? But another team or two, or at least 4 teams playing in some bubble, and we presume it also will be a shortened season as well in Australia. So that's a lot to digest for the show. And I give you guys a chance to ask any questions and comments here on Baseball's Best Mate. And I'll give you guys a moment or two if you got any questions, comments. I did want to say, I did get a great email this week. And I meant to mention this to Paul. We just ran out of time because of the conference room there in Perth. But I got a really nice email from a mate of ours, Alfredo. And he asked a couple of questions, and I addressed them to him in the email, but I want to get Paul's take, but I wanted to give you guys a couple of things he asked me. One is he asked me this, is the league looking for a betting or sportsbook partnership? My answer to him was, well, the league's had that in the past. You could get action in certain casinos in Australia on the ABL in years past. I don't know if there's plans for that, but we were going to definitely ask Cam Vale about that. But I was going to try to get Paul's input. But I know the league has had that in the past. You could, and I think you're seeing a growth of the gaming industry in general worldwide, especially for sport and North America. And I think you're going to see more of that as well over there. He asked me if the league is trying to sign an overseas broadcasting deal, and would there be more day games to accommodate prime broadcasting in the U.S.? I would say answer that partially yes. I don't know how much the interest is television-wise, but I do know that you will get. We've had in the years past Korean games. We've had ABL games broadcast in their normal time overnight in North America, then replayed later on in the daytime. That's happened over and over again. We've watched. They've had some playoff games broadcast in the States on MLB TV as well, starting late in the evening, but and have replayed them in better daytime hours. But I would think, as I told him in the email, anything to get this game coverage worldwide, they'll do what they got to do. And I think if that's what they have to do, they'll do it. It may not come down to what the league can do, maybe what the partners can do. If MLB TV says, we're going to play you at night, you guys play your normal time, that's fine. So I think that's definitely something that would be a consideration. And he also asked me if the MLB is hungry for winter development leagues, we might get to more players from overseas. Can we field 2 teams per club if we play in a bubble? And I think that Paul and I talked about that already a little bit, to a degree, that I think there's some possibilities there. I could see you having teams sending multiple players and having perhaps bubble teams with MILB players. That could very well be a possibility. But all good stuff right there. Good to see William out there. Jake, good to see you as well, joining us. And maybe I'll get you on the show, mate. How about that? But good to see Spider as well. Talking Baseball Australia, baseball's best mate. It's the show we do every week, Talking Baseball Australia Live. Paul Morgan had to jump away there, but appreciate his taking the time. I don't think I got anything else. I'll give you guys a minute or so. You got any questions or comments, I'll definitely take them here. But I don't think that we got a lot more. Again, we sort of got caught up in this whole what's going to happen with this bubble thing, and I think there's a lot of things. If you read what we talked about earlier, we had Cam Vale's quotes from last week. There's still a lot of this story to be told. But we're seeing it unfold right now. It looks like the ABL will have some kind of quasi bubble in Auckland, and how that looks and how the schedule goes from there is anybody's guess. But it's obviously going to have some kind of parameters based upon television games, which would be Geelong, Korea, and Auckland, the 2 markets or the 2 teams that have the most lucrative broadcasting deals in the ABL. So we're seeing some of these things take place. Again, there's a lot to be determined between now and then, between opening day, whenever that may be. As Paul mentioned, he can't get out of Western Australia, and I can't get into Australia. It's all and I'm not alone. I mean, there's other players that can't get in as well. I mean, by players, media, workers, you name it. Everybody else is in the same boat. So that is all we've had here. Next week's show airs. Again, we air our shows. It's 8 a.m. Western Australia, so adjust your timepiece wherever you're at across the country. And, of course, in North America, there's only one time zone, right? It's the Central Time Zone, the Texas Time Zone. It's 7 p.m. Thursday night in North America, or in this case, Dallas-Fort Worth. And then, again, 8 a.m. in Perth. And then just adjust your timepiece across the country there. A couple of little scatter shooting pieces to pass along to you. We didn't get to a lot of this, but I just want to give you a couple of things. Former Perth Heater Alex Boshiers. Congratulations to Alex. Got a chance to sign with the Sioux Falls Canaries. He's back in a playoff race in the American Association. Good to see that. Also, 2019 Brisbane Bandit import Wes Darville was named Player of the Week in the American Association for this last week. Also, Mikey Reynolds is third in the association. The Adelaide Giant infielder, is batting .336 the American Association. Also, Michael Krause of Canberra, Melbourne, and Sydney with 9 home runs is tied for second in the association. A couple of names there, just some guys that are doing some things from the Indie Ball report right there here on Talking Baseball Australia, baseball's best mate. Last call for questions. Last call. Please share this. Please tell others about it. It's a show we've been doing on the radio going back to 2013 or 2012. Actually, we did our first show together on the radio at Sport FM in Perth. And then we've been doing this podcast, now moving from the podcast to a live broadcast. We also will have for you tomorrow on Saturday in Australia, the Call the Bullpen. We'll be giving you a little replay of this show, a short 2-minute snippet on Twitter. You can check that out. Of course, the replay is on Twitter as well. We carry this on YouTube Live and also on our Facebook channel. Our website's coming as well. I've been working on it. It's coming. We got a revamped website. It's coming to you as well. And of course, you can always follow us on our social channels. I should give those to you, shouldn't I? Probably should pull those up. Let's do that for you. But you can follow both of us on social media as Paul and I, and also, of course, following Talking Baseball Australia right there in the middle. There's Paul Morgs, and there's me on the right. We will follow you back, follow you as well. You want questions and comments, you can also message us right here, and I will be posting on the website our emails, but some of you guys do know our email. If you are looking to email me and the comments about the show, I'll give you that as well right now. I meant to do that earlier, but here's where you can find me, and this is where you can check in. And we, again, as I mentioned, we had do that right now. There we go. You can check my email at DanTTU and DanTTU91@gmail.com. You can questions about the show, anything you want to add, we'd love to hear from you. Email me there, on Facebook, message us, Twitter, whatever you want to do. But please follow us. We'd love to have you guys join us, and please share baseball's best mate, and let's all keep the faith. Let's all show a little Australian baseball love. It's a great game, and there's a growing game, and our game has got a bright future in Australia, and looking forward to having you guys join us again next week. I tell all my T-Bone fans in Kansas City this every week. We do a show every Wednesday on the T-Bones page called The Steakhouse, and I say this every time. Virtual hugs to all you guys worldwide. Much love. It's a tough time we're in right now, and it's been a crazy time for us in North America. For you in Australia, you are watching us worldwide, perhaps our mate Baseball Brit overseas as well. It's crazy. It's a crazy time. But what I've kind of said, and what I've told our T-Bone fans, even though we're not playing baseball this summer in Kansas City, that we want to be better when we come out of this thing, better fans, better friends, better mates, better cousins, brothers, sisters, wives, husbands, whatever. Let's all be better. Let's all show empathy and a lot more love. And let's all come out of this thing when we're ready for baseball in Australia, ready to go better than ever before. Okay. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Again, thanks for my broadcast partner, the greatness of Paul Morgan. We'll come back to you next week with more updates. And who knows, again, we should have Tyler Anderson. I keep saying Alexander. I got that in my brain. Tyler Anderson will join us as well in the week as well, and also Kim Vale around the corner. We got all that ready as we unveil the ABL schedule next week right here on Talking Baseball Australia. Baseball's best mate all year long. Let's throw that video close up there for you. There we go. The part I hate it. I love the close, but I hate to say goodbye. Goodbye. We'll see you next week. We'll see you in next week's broadcast. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back for its root. Root for the puppy. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Let's get some runs! Get some runs! Get some runs! What, Tom? Get some runs!